Hey everybody, Wilfie here in terrifying 1080p. That's right, you can see every disgusting pore and flaw on my face. Okay, I'm over that. Anyway, I read a few pieces of opinion online today, and just a few different articles about the topic that I want to rant about a little bit. Not really rant, I actually think I have some moderately interesting or insightful things to say on this. Oh great, thanks air conditioning. Whatever. I think the central topic is focused around Windows 8, and this is a rare one for me. I'm a Unix guy, so I hate Apples as much as I hate Windows PCs, and my preference is Linux. I'm one of those, and there's probably very little that the industry is going to do in the next 5 or 10 years that'll ever change that opinion of mine. The main issue I have with Macs is that they tend to be ridiculously overpriced. And I know that there are Mac people out there that are just going to fiend when they hear that. They're not overpriced, they're competitive with the Intel market for PCs. Yeah, I'm one of those guys that buys AMD even though they're cheaper, even though they're slower. They also tend to be cheaper. And anyway, so I digress. The second reason I tend not to like Macs is that goddamn interface. It is the most annoying layout of a set of interface widgets. People think it's beautiful. I just always think of it as shiny plastic, and it is so ugly to me. And the fact that the standard Mac comes with one mouse button, the insistence on using special meta keys for everything, I don't know. I was never an Emacs fan either, so that might be the problem I have with Mac OS. Just everything has its own behaviors, like shift arrow keys do different things than on every other platform. And there's lots of differences that make a keyboard-centric user like me just want to kill myself when I actually have to use a Mac for more than 2 minutes. Now you get to a terminal on a Mac, and if you stay out of Apple's development ecosystem, in other words, if you bring your own GCC to the table, your own compiler suite, your own tools, and just stick to the command prompt, a Mac it's okay. They work a bit like Linux in that they just get the hell out of the way once you're at the command line anyway, and let you do your work. I'd just rather have Linux and get the whole thing out of the way. But as I read all these different opinion pieces, most people saying, oh yeah, Metro looks great. I don't know if Windows is going to make it or not. I love how that's the opinion that everyone ultimately comes down to, is they don't know. Like, way to commit to an opinion there, guys. That's just fantastic. I do not make a prediction like that. I do know what's going to happen with Windows 8. At least a very good idea. And I'm willing to put my name out there and put my opinion right next to it in a big shiny flag, and I'm willing to be wrong. Because, it happens, and how do you learn unless you screw up? But as I read these pieces, I started to come to terms with something that I think I haven't realized for a long time, even though it's been true for a long time. I am nothing like an average PC user. I'm just literally not a normal computer user. The best example I can think of is the fact that I can sit at a Linux workstation at work and be perfectly happy all day long. Be very productive, get lots done. In fact, I can get more done more quickly on Linux than I can on Windows, and that's simply owing to the fact that it's Unix, and so are our servers. I know commands to interact with things quickly. I can get where I need lightning fast. It's faster than Windows. Sorry, guys. It's just true. And, everything I do can be bound to quick keyboard shortcuts or very simple interface widgets, and it's just as beautiful. In fact, I would say KDE is actually more impressive looking than Windows 7 or Windows 8, and really even better than Mac OS. Especially combined with that nice Unity font. It's just magnificent. It's beautiful. But anyway, I am so not the average user. And that means that my opinion, valuable as it obviously is, isn't actually that useful as far as figuring out what's the right desktop OS for random John Q. Public. I'm still going to say Linux, only because I'm also of the same kind of school of thought that we should all cut our TV cables too. And it's, well, people can't do the same things in Linux that they can in Windows. That argument always crops up because there's truth to it. Applications that are written for Windows don't necessarily work on Linux. A lot of them don't, because Microsoft loves changing their behind-the-scenes APIs, and the only tool that emulates those at all, or re-implements them, kind of clean room, is Wine, and that tool can't access undocumented features because they're undocumented. So if you don't have documentation for them, how the hell do you re-implement them? Hold on one second, there's something here that wants attention. Well, you've been bugging me. Right. This is one of my cats, and it's been whining at me since I started this video, so I'm just going to hold it. This is a her. This is Bella. Say hello, Squirmy. Those are great eyes. That should get her. There, that should finish that obnoxious irritation. You wanted attention, you just got it. Yeah. Sorry, where was I? Right. You can't implement in a clean room something that's undocumented. So even if you know that there's an API out there for Windows included with every copy of Windows, if there's no docs for it, you get to reverse engineer it, or better, you ignore the bloody thing. And unfortunately, that means a lot of applications, especially Microsoft written applications, they're the worst at this, just won't run under Wine on Linux. So why the hell would I recommend using Linux for just some random desktop instead of Windows? For one thing, we need to have more people using Linux to encourage the market to produce apps for Linux. We do have some game makers are starting to see the light with Kickstarter out there helping get projects funded. We're actually starting to see people asking for Linux clients, and some game makers are saying yes. Even id Software still out there making Linux games, although I think they originally promised they would make a Rage version for Linux, but I don't know that they have. And that's disappointing, because I'd love to play Rage on Linux. That would just be fun. But really, the only thing Windows has that Linux doesn't is the library of applications. And increasingly, in the world of Linux, there's a lot of similar functioning applications out there, and you can really do all the same work. It just may look different, or it may have a different name on the top title bar of the application you're using. Microsoft Office's open documents format, which isn't even remotely open, by the way, and I'd just like to say, fuck you, Microsoft, for pulling that one again. That lack of openness, despite the name, is what lends to less than perfect conversion, import, export, that sort of thing in LibreOffice for all the Microsoft Office files. I've got one that I need to work on probably next week at work. That, it's a very pretty document, and I'm eating my own mistake here. By setting it up in Office, I set myself up for being stuck with Office if I want to maintain that document. Fortunately, it's only 3 pages long, it's 2 columns, and it's a list, so I'm essentially going to have to just cut and paste the thing and plop it in some other tool. Basically, I want it to be cross-platform so that the people on our team can all access it. We've got people using Windows, we've got me using Linux, and several are using Macs. So they all need to be able to maintain this document or make changes or contributions as they like. So, yeah, don't mind me as I readjust my leg. Anyway, on to the, I guess the prediction here for what Windows 8 will mean to the computing industry. Apple's going to make a killing. That's really the only thing that's going to come out of this Windows 8 debacle of any significance. I see Windows 8 as being a desperate flop. Microsoft is really kind of betting the farm on this, and from what I understand, they've done a good job with the Metro interface, But what I also understand is they've done a terrible job keeping old mannerisms and legacy interfaces. You know, like the start menu. That's gone. You like it? Tough. Can't even re-add it. Apparently in the consumer preview of Windows 8, they finally made it easier to turn off the PC. Now it's still in settings, of all places, but it only takes 1 or 2 clicks now instead of 3 or 4. Just brilliant move to make the power button on your computing appliance not do what you'd expect it to out of the box and make it impossible to change it. Great job, Microsoft. Now the reason I say Apple's going to clean up on this is because they only have to do 2 things. Just 2 things, and they can totally afford it with their giant sacks of money to completely capitalize on general consumer level dissatisfaction with Windows 8. We can ignore the business market. The business market is still using Windows XP, and there is no way in hell you're going to see businesses upgrading to Windows 8. It changes workflow, and that is an expensive change to make for a business. So these companies that have thousands or tens of thousands of installed licensed seats for Windows, they're going to stay on XP. If any kind of upgrade happens, it's going to be a begrudging upgrade to 7, not 8, because they do not want to train 10,000 monkeys, again, how to use Metro instead of the interface that they've finally gotten their monkeys to use after 10 years of beating it into their skulls. That's expensive. And not to mention licensing costs. So the corporate market is never even going to look at 8. I know Microsoft is excited about Windows Server 8 or 2008, whatever the hell they're calling it. I'm sure they'll straighten out the branding somehow. I'm sure the word live will cram their way into it because they just recently discontinued the live brand. So there's probably a few bitter people on that team. Might work their way into the naming committee. Anyway, I'm sure there's going to be people looking at the newest Windows Server when it comes out, but most competent systems administrators and engineers, and software engineers that is, when they look at a Windows Server, they go, "Oh, how cute! Where's the Linux disk? Seriously." Because, quite bluntly, you cannot seriously host big things on Windows servers without dropping just shit tons of cash, spending way more than you need to. And you've got all the usual Windows fun and games like viruses and the binary-based registry and crappy upgrade process and constant updates from the vendor that could randomly break stuff. And of course you've got upgrades in Debian too, frequently, but they test the shit out of that. If you're running Debian stable, you don't have the latest and greatest version of a given software package, but the damn thing's not going to break. And if you do an upgrade, it's also not going to break. Anyway, so, the server market already kind of chuckles at Microsoft trying to play along. So that's 2 out of 3 major segments that Microsoft dominates, or tries to dominate, rather, that they play in anyway, that Windows 8 is just going to land with a wet thud in. You got the corporate market, they don't give a shit about 8, they're not going to pay for it. And the server market is just going to look at 8 with a yawn. Because again, it's the same kind of thing. You want to upgrade a Windows server? No such thing. Reinstall, bitch. Because, you've got a big bank of thousands of computers there, right? They're just sitting there waiting for you to reinstall something new on them. I mean, I've got a closet of 20,000 computers in my dinky little apartment. I don't get Microsoft's thinking on that. They just really hate the idea of people upgrading. They want new installations. I guess it makes sense because new installations are pricier, but they're a more expensive license, but whatever. All that leaves is the consumer market. And like I said, Apple just has to do 2 things. Just 2. If they want to capitalize on the Windows 8 release. Because there are some under-the-hood mistakes Microsoft is making that are really going to cause problems. The first thing Apple needs to do, and I hate Apple, by the way. I hate Macs. I don't like the company or its ethics or its behaviors. especially their patent trolling, their constant claims that they innovate and invent when really they just glue together stuff that was done years earlier, paint it shiny plastic colors. Even so, even though I hate them, I'm going to say these two things because really they already know. First thing that will really help is to either start bundling for free or just flat out giving away for free some kind of Parallels-like emulation layer. Every Mac, no matter what it is, if it's running Mac OS, it should be able to emulate Windows to run Windows apps. If they pull that, it doesn't matter what it costs Apple to put that software on every Mac for free. They also need to stop charging Mac users for OS upgrades, but that's not going to make a difference. So really, all the first major thing they've got to do is get Windows running on every Mac. If it's a Mac and it's running the newest version of Mac OS, it should be able to just eat any Windows application and install it in either a virtual machine or just flat out emulate the thing. Get that working, guys, and you're halfway there to cleaning up the market. The second thing Apple needs to do is go out on one of their keynotes, because they get lots of attention when they do a keynote, and whoever runs the company now, Tim something I think, just needs to go on stage and say, "Hi, we've only got one big announcement this year as far as software goes, and then we're going to introduce a bunch of new fun hardware like the iPad 4.5, the iPad 3.1, and the iPod blah blah blah, the iPhone 15 ST QR, and all these other incremental upgrades to hardware you've already got that we're charging a premium for." Anyway, we'll get to that exciting stuff later. The software change we're announcing this year is that Mac OS is now available for all Intel-based PCs. Yeah. Seriously, all they need to do is stop checking, is just quit the check during Mac OS installation that it's running on blessed Apple hardware. The company is free to say, we're not going to support you if you run on a PC that isn't a Mac, but they need to stop artificially stopping computers from running Mac OS that don't come from Apple. They do that, Windows 8 will just hand them the PC market. I'm not kidding. If you've got a PC that you spent $1,000 to build, you're going to be mighty pissed at the prospect of having to spend another $1,500 just to get a Mac that might have a better interface than Windows 8. But if all it's going to cost you is $30 or $60 to buy Mac OS 10.8, Chester Cheetah edition, more and more, a lot of people are going to try it. And as a matter of fact, I would say a metric shit ton of people will try it. That will introduce a whole new market of people to Apple. And if they do that, they do these two things. It's like, you can run Mac OS on your PC. Incidentally, we include software that can run Windows in a box or integrate it with the desktop, whichever. So you can still run your Windows applications on whichever version of Windows you already own. They'll own the market, no question. So anyway, I think that was about it. I'm going to continue to use Linux on my desktop myself, just because I can. But, and I still think we need to see more Linux installations on desktops, but that's an argument for another day. Anyway, I just wanted to babble about this for a while, because it's really been bugging me. All this hype about Windows 8, half of it focuses on, oh my god, Microsoft got this really new cool thing, they're going to put it on tablets, and they're trying to lock things down too much, and I just don't see the industry responding to that too well. Not with Android and iOS out there competing for the tablet market, and arguably with Linux out there as a free alternative too. And the other half of the opinions are, the interface changes suck. And I think those are the ones that are going to stick. The average consumer goes out and buys a PC, and all of a sudden it looks like it's running an OS that was designed for a touchscreen. They, reach up and poke the screen, and nothing happens. Oh yeah, that thing's going back. Because when they realize the interface is engineered and optimized for touch gestures, like, poke, swipe, and, click and drag, and all that, or, point and drag, that kind of crap. And all they've got is this dinky little mouse. they're going to be pissed. They'll run that machine right back to the store. I do predict Windows 8 being a complete flop. It will survive only by Microsoft's policy of aggressively forcing OEMs to manufacture computers with Windows 8 built in, or pre-installed anyway. That is the only way Windows 8 will see the light of day on many computers. The enthusiast market is just not there. There's not enough of us. I tried the consumer preview for probably about 30 minutes in a virtual machine. I deleted the VM when I was done playing because there's no way I see myself using that on a daily basis. There just aren't enough enthusiasts out there, even Microsoft fanboys, who will really adopt Windows 8. And between that impending failure and hopefully some clever moves by Apple to kind of creep in on that market just a little bit, I think we're about to see a pretty significant shift in the PC market over the next couple of years. And competition is never a bad thing. So, right, keep on writing those opinion articles, folks, where you don't actually take a stand and stick to it. I'm out there saying Windows 8's going to flop. And if Apple's clever, they're about to win a whole bunch of market share they didn't have before. Market cap will go through the roof, and maybe their stock will be worth $1,000 a share by next year. Anyway, we'll see how that all goes. Thanks for listening to this rather long-winded rant, and stick around for some X3 stuff coming up this weekend. I just read some very interesting stuff about equipment docks and that sort of thing, so I'm going to try to set some of that up, and we'll do that in a couple of videos here in the Humble Merchant series. So, thanks for listening, and until next time, take care. I'll see you.